Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adelia Puspita, and right now I will explain and presentation about final project from the syntax. So we're gonna talk about grammatical relation. So before we're gonna talk and presentation about this topic, I have a table content that I want to explain. The first is about introduction, and the next is about core grammatical relation, and then the next is example, and the next is function, and the last is conclusion. So first, we're gonna talk about introduction. So, what is grammatical relation? Grammatical relation, also called it as a syntactic function, refers to the structural relationship between the component of a sentence, especially subject, object, and predicate. This relation determines how noun plus function in a relationship to the verb in a clause. They are essential for identifying who does what to whom, and understanding sentence structure and transformation, like a passive question or anything. And the last is analyzing how language marks syntactic rules, like a word order and case agreement. So this is the core grammatical relation. The first is subject. Subject is like the noun phrase that typically perform the action of the verb. Like in here, they have an example like Mary reads a book. Mary in here as a subject. And the next is direct object. Okay, direct object is like the entity directly affected by the verb. So in this example, like Mary read a book in here, there be a direct object. And the next is indirect object. Indirect object is like the recipient of beneficiary of the action. Like Mary gives John a book, and John in here is being an indirect object. And the next is predicate. Predicate is like the verb plus expressing the action or states. Like for example, Mary is reading a book. Is reading a book is an example of the predicate. And this is like the example, another example, like this is the sentence. For example, the teacher gave the student homework. So if we gonna see that subject in here, it will be the teacher. The teacher is will a subject and gave as a verb or predicate, and the student as an indirect object, and homework as a direct object. Okay, so we're gonna talk about what the function. So the function is, the first is about analyze sentence structure, and then the next is compare language typologically, and then the next is understanding ambiguity and meaning shift, and the last is like with syntactic tree and price structure rules. So this is the function. The next function is like support agreement and word order subject verb agreement and fixed English sentence structure. It seems like I said before, and then help identify sentence constituents, and the next is show the different language grammatical relation in a different way. Okay, so after that, I have a conclusion. So the conclusion is grammatical relation refers to the syntactic roles that element, usually non-phrase, and play within a sentence, such as subject, object, or complement that I talked about before, and they describe who does what to whom in a clause, and they're fundamental to syntax because they identify the roles that sentence elements play and govern how words interact and enable grammatical process like agreement, pacification, and clause structure. Without grammatical relation, sentence will be disorganized and hard to interpret. Okay, after we're gonna talk about grammatical relation, we have a next next topic is about surface structure. So before that, I will tell you about the table of content that I want to explain in presentation. The first is about introduction, and then example, function, characteristic, and the last is conclusion. So the first we're gonna talk about introduction, like what is surface structure? Structure, also called as a structure, refers to the final syntactic form of a sentence, which appear after transformational rules are applied. It is the sentence structure that we actually speak, hear, read, or read. And definition of the surface structure is like the outward syntactic form of a sentence and produced after the deep structure has been transformed by syntax rules. So this is the concept come from the noun Chomsky transformational generative grammar atau TGG. Chomsky proposed that sentences are generated through two levels. The first is deep structure, it's like the underlying meaning, and the next is surface structure or S structure. It's like the final spoken or written form. So this is the example from the surface and deep structure. Okay, let's take an example sentence. Surface structure is like the cake was eaten by John, but if we're gonna talk about deep structure, the sentence will be John ate the cake. Okay, so for the explanation, in the deep structure, the sentence begins with the again John as a subject, but in the transformation rules like pacification rearrange the structure into its surface form. Like this, for example, deep structure like John loved Mary, and then in this surface structure, it's like John loved Mary. It's same, but not transformation necessary. Okay, so next we're gonna talk about the function. So what the function of this is like help us understand sentence variation mean the same thing but are structured differently. And the next is support system analysis of movement and transformation. And the next is useful for building tree diagram and tracing complex structure. So this is the characteristic of surface structure. The first is reflect the linear order of word in a sentence. And the next is contain elements that are redirected or inserted to transformation. And the next is closely related to phonological form. And the next is easily accessible to native speaker. And the next is may be ambiguous even if the deep structure is not. So we're gonna talk about the last is conclusion. Okay, so in a summary, surface structure is a crucial concept in a syntax that represent the final form of a sentence after syntactic transformation have been applied to its deep structure. It reflects how we actually produce and interpret sentence in everyday communication. And then understanding surface structure help linguistics explain sentence variation, ambiguity, and the relationship between form and meaning. It is an essential tool for syntactic analysis, language learning, and linguistic theory. Okay, so the last we're gonna talk about tree diagram in syntax. So they have a some of tree diagram. Then I will explain it. Okay, the first sentence is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So in here we're gonna see that they have a subject and noun phrase and verb phrase. So in the noun phrase they have a determinant and adjective phrase. Okay, in determinant, the as a determinant, quick as a adjective phrase, and brown as a noun, folk as a verb, and jump as a pp. And then in here, uh, pay as a over, and np in the determinant, adjective and nouns. So the as a determinant, lazy as a adjective, and dog as a noun. Okay, next we're gonna talk about, wait, we're gonna talk about number 3 is Zevano showed the Ezekiela with the telescope. So in here, Zevano as a noun phrase, and the saw as a verb, and the Ezekiela the as a noun phrase, and purpose as a Ezekiela, and pay as a width, and pay as a the telescope. Okay, number 4 is she believed that the earth is round. So in here, they have a subject, noun phrase, and purpose. So she in here as a noun phrase, and the belief as a verb, and the that they have as a subject, and that the earth as a noun phrase, is as a verb, and round as an adjective phrase. Okay, the next is number 5. The house where I grew up has been demolished. So in here, the in here as a determinant, house in here as a noun, and where in here as a relative clause, where I grew up, and then has been demolished as an auxiliary and verb. So I think this is enough for me for presentation. Kurang lebihnya mohon maaf. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.